Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new legal breaking reporting and video analysis update. The Supreme Court of the United States is meeting or has met today, September 29th, 2025, to discuss Ghislaine Maxwell, who is Jeffrey Epstein's former ex-girlfriend and associate and accomplice. Anyway, to discuss her potential unconstitutional, ridiculous pardon, who is serving, mind you, she is serving 20 years for convicted sex trafficking. Mind you, this conviction this pardon, will not change the fact that she is guilty, nor will it erase her past and what she is convicted of. Anyway, the Supreme Court is meeting today to discuss Ghislaine Maxwell and a bunch of other pending cases. Let's take a look at this reporting by NBC. Ladies and gentlemen, the article is titled, Supreme Court Meets to Discuss Ghislaine Maxwell and, Ghislaine Maxwell Appeal and Other Pending Cases. Ladies and gentlemen, the article reads, the Supreme Court justices are scheduled to meet in private on Monday. Today, ladies and gentlemen, my editorial edition, to discuss hundreds of appeals piled up during their summer recess, including Ghislaine Maxwell's challenge to her criminal conviction for recruiting and grooming teenage girls for Jeffrey Epstein. The court only takes up a tiny percentage of appeals and will likely announce a list of those it has agreed to hear later in the week. 4 of the 9 justices have voted, have to vote in favor of hearing a case for it to be taken up. A wide array of other cases are also scheduled to be discussed by the justices at what is known as the long contendence. They include such issues as gun rights, social media company immunity, and COVID-19 era vaccine disputes. On Monday, pardon me, ladies and gentlemen, Monday also marks 20 years since John Roberts became Chief Justice. The new 9-month Supreme Court term, when the court will begin hearing cases, officially starts on October 6th. Maxwell's lawyers say that a deal Epstein made with prosecutors in Florida, in which the then U.S. attorney agreed not to prosecute potential conspirators, ladies and gentlemen, co-conspirators, should apply to one of the 3 counts in her case. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue with the reporting, I want to say, even though I don't agree with John Roberts allowing Trump in office because of him being an adjudicated insurrectionist, or his 34 felony counts for falsifying business records, I want to say, or, ladies and gentlemen, allowing him to be immune from prosecution at the moment while he is still in office. Because as Pamela Joe Bondi, his piece of crap Attorney General, stated multiple times that nobody is above the law. If nobody is above the law, then why the hell is your piece of shit boss thinking that he can do whatever the fuck he wants? You piece of shit, Pam Bondi. Continuing with the reporting, ladies and gentlemen. The legal question is whether the terms of a so-called non-prosecution agreement apply only in the district where it was negotiated, or also bind federal prosecutors nationwide. While the agreement with Epstein was made in Florida, Maxwell was prosecuted in New York. The Justice Department has urged the Supreme Court not to hear the case, with Solicitor General D. John Sauer noting, among other things, that under internal superiors, if the agreement were to apply outside his district, there is no evidence that occurred, Sauer added. Firstly, F you, John Sauer. You're a piece of crap. You don't deserve to be in any government position, you moron. Doofus. Epstein's long history of abuse has surged back into the headlines this year as the Trump administration, in response to pressure from some of President Donald Trump's own supporters, pledged to release new information about the episode. But the Justice Department and the FBI then said there was no Epstein client list or evidence he was blackmailing famous men. We all know that's a lie. Pam Bondi knows that's a lie. She's just protecting sex offenders. because she likes getting raped by them. The government also said it is clear that Epstein killed himself in 2019, pushing back on unfounded conspiracy theories suggesting he was killed. Of course you are. Of course you guys are pushing back against theories that, supposed theories that he was killed. I believe that he was killed. There ain't no way somebody such as him wants to or wanted to hide from the law unless they were associated and had Trump in on it, which, knowing Trump's background in criminal history, he was on it. He was in on everything. So was Elon Musk. So was Steve Bannon. So was Senator Thiel. Thiel. Continuing with the reporting, ladies and gentlemen. This promoted a backlash against the Trump administration's handling of the issue, including from Trump supporters. Trump himself was friendly within Epstein. Ladies and gentlemen, friendly with Epstein for many years before the two had a falling out. The United States attorney who oversaw the non-prosecution agreement with Epstein was Alex Acosta, who served as Labor Secretary in Trump's first term. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche who was previously a personal lawyer of Trump. For Trump. This summer met with Maxwell for hours in an encounter that at the time was shrouded in secrecy. Maxwell was subsequently moved from a lower security prison in Florida to a lower minimum security prison camp in Texas. The Bureau of Prisons did not say why she was transferred. The Justice Department later released a full transcript and audio of Blanche's interview with Maxwell. Maxwell was convicted in 2022 of 3 counts relating to her role in assisting Epstein in recruiting and grooming his victims, some of whom were as young as 14 years old. She would befriend the victims and then assist in transporting them to Epstein's residence. She was also ladies and gentlemen, she would also sometimes be present when the abuse took place, prosecutors alleged. Maxwell was serving ladies and gentlemen, Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is an unfortunate news article. Me personally, I don't give a shit about, I don't care about Ghislaine Maxwell. She did what she did, and she needs to personally not be pardoned. Which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the non-pardon agreement, or whatever it was that that they had signed, does not apply. Florida's laws do not apply to New York, since she was prosecuted in New York by law. That is the legal definition of what I know of the law. You guys, you Trump supporters at least, say different. Stop supporting this piece of shit felon. He was in full-heartedly on Maxwell and Epstein. So was Steve Bannon, so was Elon Musk, so was Senator Thiel, Thiel.